So, you want to start learning Chinese in 2025, but you're not sure whether you should learn simplified or traditional Chinese. Or maybe you aren't even sure what the differences between them are. This is the video for you. After watching this 15-minute video, you understand the differences between these two Chinese variants and know which questions you need to ask yourself in order to make the right decision. Hi everyone, welcome to my channel. My name is Ka Yi and I'm a qualified translator and language teacher and a proud member of the Chartered Institutes of Linguists here in the UK. My husband and I are also raising our children to be trilingual in Russian, English and Chinese. As we step into 2025, I know many of you will be making New Year resolutions, which may include learning a new language. And if you clicked on this video, you may well be learning Chinese. If so, congratulations! You've picked one of the most difficult languages in the world. Just kidding. So, as a beginner, you may have heard about something called Simplified Chinese and something called Traditional Chinese. What do these terms even mean? Where do I start? Don't worry, this video will demystify all these questions for you and help guide you towards the right decision for you. Section 1. What's the difference between Simplified and Traditional Chinese? So, before you can decide which one to learn, you need to know what Simplified Chinese is and what Traditional Chinese is. I've made an entire video on this topic. The link is in the description box below, so be sure to watch that video after this one. But for the benefit of viewers of this video, let me give you a quick breakdown of the key differences. Simplified Chinese and Traditional Chinese refer to two different scripts or writing systems for writing the Chinese language. The key point here is that you cannot speak Simplified Chinese or Traditional Chinese. Presumably, for most of you who want to learn Chinese, you are thinking Mandarin Chinese 普通话 or 国语, which is the Chinese variant spoken by the largest number of people around the world and is the official spoken language of the People's Republic of China, where it is known as 普通话. Mandarin is also spoken as an official language in Taiwan. It's also spoken by various Chinese communities around the world, from Toronto to Timbuktu. So the decision of whether to learn Simplified Chinese or Traditional Chinese comes down to which writing system you want to learn, regardless of the spoken Chinese variant you want to learn, which in most cases is probably Mandarin, but could be Cantonese, Shanghainese, Hokkien, or any other Chinese variant or dialect. At this point, you might be wondering, why are there two writing systems in the first place? Yep, I know it can be so confusing, but in a nutshell, up until the year 1949, there was only one writing system for the Chinese language, which was Traditional Chinese, which had been in use in its current form since the Han Dynasty, dating back to around 200 BC. So why was Simplified Chinese system introduced then? Basically, it was introduced as a way to increase literacy in China. The idea was to reduce the number of strokes of some Chinese characters. To give you an example, let's take a look at this slide. As you can see, the character for dragon, long, was simplified significantly, reducing the number of strokes from 16 to 5. Since 1949, Simplified Chinese has been the official script used in Mainland China, while Traditional Chinese remains the official script in Taiwan, Hong Kong and Macau. Simplified Chinese is also used in Singapore and Malaysia. Okay, so now you know what Simplified and Traditional Chinese are. Let's figure out which one you should learn. Section 2, first key question to ask. So, to answer the question, which Chinese script should you learn if you want to start learning Chinese in 2025? It all comes down to one essential question. What are you learning Chinese for? Your answer to this question will guide you through the decision process. Let me explain. We all want to learn a new language for various reasons. For some, it might be work-related. Maybe you need to learn Chinese because your job requires it, or you're considering moving to a Chinese-speaking region for work, or you want to level up your skills for a promotion or better job opportunities. For some of you, maybe you want to learn Chinese because of family connections. Perhaps you have some sort of Chinese heritage, or maybe you don't actually have a concrete reason in mind and you simply want to learn a new language, challenge yourself, and thought, Chinese sounds interesting and challenging. Cool, these are all absolutely valid reasons for wanting to learn Chinese. Your answer to the question, what am I learning Chinese for, should also address some further questions. The most important one is to do with geography. Do you have a specific idea in mind in terms of where you intend to use Chinese? Your answer to this question will, in 90% of cases, determine which script you want to use. If you intend to use Chinese in mainland China for whatever purposes, or to communicate with people who are based in mainland China, it makes sense for you to learn simplified Chinese. The same applies to Singapore and Malaysia. If you intend to use Chinese in those regions, or your work requires you to communicate with Chinese-speaking people in these regions, it makes sense for you to learn simplified Chinese. The same principle applies if you are learning Chinese for heritage reasons. If you have extended family in mainland China, Singapore, or Malaysia with whom you wish to communicate, it might be a good idea to choose simplified Chinese. On the other hand, if you intend to use Chinese specifically in Taiwan, or if your work requires communication with Taiwanese companies in Chinese, you might be better off learning traditional Chinese. The same goes for Hong Kong. If you intend to use Chinese in Hong Kong, or you have connections with Hong Kong, whether on a personal level or business level, it might make more sense for you to learn traditional Chinese. Although in the case of Hong Kong, you must bear in mind that people there primarily speak Cantonese, not Mandarin, okay? At this point, some of you might be thinking, actually, I had no idea about all these regional variations and stuff. I haven't really given this much thought. I don't have a specific intention as to where I want to use Chinese in the future, etc., etc. Maybe you are just a casual learner at this point. I get it. That's absolutely fine too. In that case, you can choose either simplified or traditional Chinese. Although it can be argued that you are better off learning simplified Chinese. Okay, I know some people might get upset about it because, trust me, the whole simplified versus traditional Chinese debate can be highly emotive for many people. But for the benefit of a general audience who wants to learn Chinese, I just want to lay out the facts without getting into all the political stuff, okay? Let's keep the comment section politics free. In my opinion, for a general language learner who is not sure which one to choose, simplified Chinese might be a better option for the following reasons. Reason 1, level of difficulty. Simplified Chinese is arguably easier to learn due to the reduced number of strokes, especially for more complex characters, as illustrated by the example I showed you earlier, the character for dragon. Reason 2, the number of users worldwide. Traditional Chinese is used by approximately 30 million people worldwide, which is a lot, but that's in contrast to simplified Chinese, which is used by over 1 billion people worldwide. If you're someone who isn't tied to a particular Chinese-speaking region at this point, learning simplified Chinese might make more sense simply from a utilitarian standpoint. I don't want to say useful because it will trigger lots of people, but yeah, simplified Chinese might give you a bit more flexibility in the future for business or general purposes. Reason 3, availability of resources. You definitely find more learning resources and materials in simplified Chinese, so from that perspective, it will probably be easier for you as a learner. However, some of you watching this video might be learning Chinese because of an interest in classic Chinese literature, Chinese history, or even calligraphy. If that's what motivates you, traditional Chinese is arguably your best option because, well, as I explained earlier, simplified Chinese did not exist until 1949, which means that everything written in the Chinese language from the Han Dynasty up to that point would have been in traditional Chinese. So if you have a strong interest in Chinese history, literature, anything of that sort, traditional Chinese might be a better option for you. Section 3. What about Cantonese? So this video was primarily made for people who want to learn Mandarin Chinese, purely because most people who want to learn Chinese want to learn Mandarin Chinese. But of course, some of you might want to learn other Chinese variants, such as Cantonese. I'm highlighting Cantonese because I'm a Cantonese speaker myself, and also because a large number of overseas Chinese people speak Cantonese as a heritage language for historical reasons. So if you are someone learning Cantonese, which script should you learn? The first thing to point out here is that Cantonese is a spoken language and isn't the same thing as either simplified Chinese or traditional Chinese. Sorry if I'm laboring this point, but this distinction is so crucial because people really get confused about this. Cantonese is spoken in Hong Kong, in Mainland China, and many other communities around the world, and as such, isn't tied to either simplified or traditional Chinese per se. That being said, if you have family connections to Hong Kong, if you want to study or live in Hong Kong, learning traditional Chinese might be your best option, because traditional Chinese is the official script in Hong Kong and it's the script used by people in both business and personal communications. Go into a lot more detail about how Cantonese is written in my other video linked down below. I highly recommend that you watch it if you're confused about how Cantonese is written, etc. Section 4. Overlap between simplified Chinese and traditional Chinese. Okay, so I hope that by now you'll have a much clearer idea in terms of whether to choose simplified or traditional Chinese as you begin your language learning journey. But what if you're still confused or unsure? If that's the case, I want to reassure you that you shouldn't worry too much about it. Choose the one that appeals to you more. Why? Because there is a significant overlap between the two systems, and in reality, based on my own experience speaking to people from both Mainland China and Hong Kong, someone from Mainland China can still typically read traditional Chinese without too much of an issue, and vice versa. Handwriting might well be a bit more problematic, but let's be real, most people hardly ever handwrite anything these days, right? When you type Chinese, let's say using pinyin, which is the romanization method associated with Mandarin Chinese used in Mainland China, you can usually choose to output in either simplified or traditional Chinese. So that's not a problem at all. Alright folks, as we wrap up today's video, let's quickly recap the key points to help you make the best decision on whether to learn simplified or traditional Chinese in 2025. Firstly, you should now understand the main differences between the two. Simplified and traditional Chinese are two different writing systems for writing Chinese. Simplified Chinese, used primarily in Mainland China, Singapore and Malaysia, was introduced in 1949 with simplified strokes to promote literacy. Traditional Chinese continues to be used in Taiwan, Hong Kong and Macau. Secondly, after watching this video, you should understand that your decision should be determined by your language learning goals. You need to figure out why you want to learn Chinese. If you foresee using Chinese in Mainland China, Singapore or Malaysia, or for general purposes, simplified Chinese may be the way to go due to its widespread use and wider availability of learning resources. If you're leaning towards historical studies or plan to engage with regions like Taiwan and Hong Kong, traditional Chinese might be more beneficial. Thirdly, after watching this video, you should be reassured that there is in fact significant overlap between these two scripts, and learning one doesn't necessarily prevent you from understanding the other or communicating using the other script. If you found this video helpful, please hit that like button and share the video with anyone who might benefit from it. It would be awesome if you could subscribe to my channel as well.